The tragedy of the family of Roy Rodgers and Dale Evans and their 3 children. Having starred in more than 100 films, radio shows, and television shows, Roy Rodgers was something of a national treasure. This Western icon's name and looks were transferred to toys, books, and even comics. To Roy Rodgers and his wife, Dale Evans, family was everything. They had 9 children, and 5 out of those 9 were adopted. However, this family's happy trails did not pass without a hiccup. Not only were there family tragedies, but even though their family museum had more than 200,000 visits per year, it had to be shut down. Here's why Roy Rodgers' fame withered. Roy Rodgers wasn't his birth name. Rather, he was destined to change it. On November 5, 1911, in Cincinnati, Ohio, Leonard Sly, that will become to be known as Roy Rodgers, was born. When Roy Rodgers was a little boy, his father gave him a horse as a gift. This, together with the fact that he was raised on a farm near Lucasville, provided him with all the knowledge about home ownership. Another thing that came from this farm and that made him into an asset in the field of his future career was the fact that he learned how to dance, sing, and play the mandolin. This he learned because his family didn't have a radio. So, the Sly family provided for their own entertainment and even organized square dances. When Roy Rodgers was 19, he and his family moved to California. The then Leonard and his father were truck drivers and fruit pickers. Then in 1931, Leonard tried out for a Los Angeles radio show, the Midnight Frolics. Because they found him great, he received an offer to join the Rocky Mountaineers, a Western group. Although Roger was timid, he still overcame his shyness and performed in front of other people. The Rocky Mountaineers took place in the middle of summer and included countries in the areas from New Mexico and Arizona. What they found the hardest was the lack of food because they had to live off of a really tight budget. During the time that he was on the Rocky Mountaineers, Roy Rodgers started working with Bob Nolan and Tim Spencer. Both were former members of the Rocky Mountaineers. Together, they formed a group, the Pioneers Trio, in 1933. Within the group, Spencer was the lead singer, Nolan played the bass, and Sly the guitar. In 1934, they added another member to their group, Hugh Farr. He played the fiddle. Because they were so young, the announcer on the radio changed the name of the band before their radio performance. The name he gave them was the Sons of the Pioneers. They were popular across the U.S. Some of their most famous songs were Tumbling Tumbleweeds and Cool Water. Leonard Sly was given the chance to begin his career in the production of Western films. He first appeared on a film in 1935 in a supporting role. The main role in that film was taken up by Gene Autry. But when Autry wanted the production to pay him more money, the studio began its search for a new cowboy that could sing. Out of all the people who auditioned, Sly was the one who was chosen. Republic Pictures Studio altered his name into Roy Rodgers, and he was ready to assume his first leading role. It was in the film Under Western Stars. When thinking of Roy Rodgers, Dale Evans comes to mind. However, death occurred before those two fell in love. When the studio was prepping Roy Rodgers for his first leading role, they gave him a chance to pick out his horse that would be his sidekick. They lined up 5 rented horses, and Rodgers ended up picking a yellow-haired Palomino stallion. The horse's name was Golden Cloud. But because Rodgers liked the horse so much, he bought it in 1943. Rodgers thought Golden Cloud didn't fit the horse's swiftness on foot and intelligence, so he gave him a new name, Trigger. Prior to his adoption, the horse had a Hollywood career of his own. He starred in The Adventures of Robin Hood. He was the mount of Olivia de Havilland's character. Trigger knew how to sit in a chair, use a pencil to sign his name, X, lie down for a nap, and cover himself with a blanket. In addition to this, he learned 150 cues, and he could reportedly walk on his hind legs for a stunning 50 feet. All that is what made him one famous horse, and he adored the fame. No matter the number of tricks he had at his disposal, Trigger couldn't help but ruin some of them because he bowed each time that he heard applause. If you ask, the most impressive fact is that Trigger was. Of course, apart from his career, Rodgers had a love life. He married his first wife in 1933. She was his admirer, and their marriage only lasted a few years. Her name was Lucille Ascalisi. But during his radio tour, he met his second wife, Grace Arlene Wilkins. This also happened in 1933, but in Roswell, New Mexico. The two married immediately after the finalization of Rodgers' first divorce in 1936. They adopted a daughter, but Wilkins also gave birth to a daughter in 1943. Their names are Cheryl Darlene and Linda Lou. Wilkins also gave birth to a baby boy, Ray Jr., also known as Dusty, before she died of childbirth complications in 1946. Ray Rodgers and Dale Evans met on set in 1944 when they collaborated on a movie together. A few years after the death of his previous wife, Wilkins, the two inevitably fell in love. At this time, Evans was preparing for a role and of a future co-star of Rodgers at Republic Studios. Before she met Rodgers, Evans eloped at the age of 14 and gave birth to a son at the age of 15. After her first marriage fell through, she pursued a radio career and had 2 more husbands. If her first 3 marriages didn't fall through, she wouldn't have met Rodgers. The couple built a huge family, but as you will see, the tragedy didn't evade them. At a rodeo at the Chicago Stadium, Rodgers proposed to Evans. Soon after, in 1947, the two got married. They married at the same place where they had filmed Home in Oklahoma. It wasn't long before Evans gave birth to a baby girl, whose name was Robin Elizabeth. Sadly, the baby had Down syndrome and died after mumps complications. This all happened before her second birthday. In order to show they didn't forget her, Evans wrote a book named Angel Unaware. This won't be the only thing done in honor of their baby girl. Evans's book, Angel Unaware, turned out to be very inspirational. Her 1953 display of her daughter's life prompted discussion amongst Americans and the disabled. People were amazed at the fact how much Rodgers and Evans were engaged when taking care of their daughter was in question. There's even a training center for children with developmental disabilities that acquired her name, the Dale Rodgers Training Center in Oklahoma. As time passed, Evans and Rodgers adopted children Mimi, Dodie, Sandy, and Debbie. This showcases how much love the two had within them and were ready to give. Robin's death was not only the only tragedy that happened to this famous couple. Their daughter Debbie was born in Korea. She was only 12 when she died. Namely, she was one of 8 people who died during a tragic bus accident. The school bus crashed into 7 cars on the highway. Sadly, that's not all. Their son, John David, better known as Sandy, was only 18 when he died. Sandy signed up for the army and was deployed to Germany. He died in a military hospital in Germany in 1965 at the age of 18. While he was building his family and giving its members much-needed love, Rodgers still focused on his career. Besides films, he did a lot of public appearances. The money from these appearances, however, ended up in the Republic Pictures pockets. It was only in 1940 that Rodgers initiated a clause that permitted him the right to use his likeness, his voice, and his name for merchandise. He wanted his kids raised on a ranch where they could have horses and pigs and chickens and cows. Of course, what parents want and what the kids want are two completely different things. That's how his son, Dusty, turned out to be in 2 films by the time he finished high school. Dusty wanted to be an actor, and Rodgers was not too thrilled. Rodgers was not in favor of his son being an actor. The job lasted for about 2 weeks. My main task was to test the scams in napalm bombs. Finally, I quit. That really angered Dad. I got mad and left town with friends, Dusty said. Dusty left his family in order to set up his career in Ohio. But that's when he realized just how important of a figure his father is to the outside world. Dusty eventually returned to Apple Valley and smoothed things out with Rodgers by saying, "What really worries me, Dad, is I'm afraid you're going to die and I won't have a chance to tell you that I really love you." It won't be long before Dusty would have to be the one making hard decisions. Trigger led a long and wonderful life. This successful horse even had his career in Hollywood. But sadly, he died in 1965 in Apple Valley, in California, at Roy Rodgers' ranch. In order to honor Trigger, Rodgers preserved him and mounted him by Bischoff's taxidermy. In 1967, in Apple Valley, Rodgers started the Roy Rodgers and Dale Evans Museum. Trigger was a part of the display so that the fans could mourn his death. But as you will hear, some years will pass until the horse is robbed of his permanent home. The family museum was moved from Apple Valley to Victorville, California. From 1976, when the museum was moved, it attracted many people who rushed there in order to see something that would remind them of Roy Rodgers and Dale Evans, Westerns they watched on the small screens when they were growing up. Then, in 2003, the museum was moved to Branson, Missouri. After Rodgers and Evans' death, the IRS levied a high tax on the Rodgers estate. The children could only relocate the museum to another area in the hopes of reaching more tourists that would visit and generate enough profit to keep it working. The relocation to Missouri was not something that helped preserve the museum. The Roy Rodgers and Dale Evans Museum simply couldn't keep up with the variety of honky-tonks and other tourist attractions in Branson. Because of that, the museum needed to be closed. The decision to close the museum has come after 2 years of steady decline in visitors. "We cannot continue to accumulate debt to keep the doors open," said Dusty in one statement. Goodbye, legendary singer and actor Roy Rodgers. Thanks so much for watching.